Thank you, Alpha, and thank you everyone for staying. Hi,
Hi.
you are most welcome to NYU Accra.
Thank you.
This is our community.
You guys are so beautiful. Thank
This
you
is
for
now
being
your
here.
community,
Thank you.
and we want you to feel at home, as we do at Labone Dialogues. When you come here, this becomes your home, and your future projects are always welcome here.
Good
You
to
are
know.
always welcome to come and do your research here. We began Labone Dialogues in 2020, I believe. And one of the things that we felt it was important to do was to ensure that we are talking about the people who are making a difference in African lives at home and abroad. So I'm very proud to say that I believe this is the 16th Labone Dialogues we have done. And we're so honored to have you here with us. So one of the things that was very interesting to me about this film, when the credits were rolling, there was a long list of people on the Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah.
And I wondered if we could start, and if you could give me your thoughts and your recollections about the joys, the challenges, the difficulties of raising money to make a film like this in America that goes on to become not just representative of us, but really tells our story in a very nuanced way. It can't have been easy, or maybe it was.
It was not easy, no. Definitely not easy. It was a hellscape of like it was just basically asking every single person that I'd ever met, that I ever come into contact with, friends of friends, friends of friends of friends of friends, if they would give me $20 or $15 or whatever. And it's like my parents had come from Ghana to the U.S. with not a lot, and put me through very fancy schools where I developed this accent and only for me to turn around and be like essentially
An actress.
Well, not even an actress, but digitally panhandling, like asking people for money, on the internet. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun, but it was kind of a PhD in and of itself of like having to learn how you make the art, but then you have to learn how to do the business part of getting the art out there. And I think that was a whole other education in and of itself, and that I'm really happy to have behind me. But as you know, this film, it premiered in the festival circuit in 2021, and then it had its theatrical release in New York and London and LA in America in 2022. So here we are almost at 2026, and I have not made another film yet. And that is in large part because the financing part was so soul-sucking and difficult. And I think I have a bit of PTSD about getting back on the horse in that regard. Yeah.
We thank you for this. And one of the things that's interesting to me is a few years ago, we had a symposium here where we looked at and we brought in writers from all over the continent and the diaspora. And we sort of themed it Reclaiming the Narrative, because these were folks who were telling the African story differently and finding a way to do it. Now, I had read that you wrote this screenplay in part because even though you have done the work, as we say, you've done Broadway, you've done off-Broadway, you've done television, you were looking for a reflection of you, sort of. And if Hollywood was not going to write the story for you, you were going to do it. So following up to the finance in question is that once you were able to get the money to make this film, how then were you able to get people to distribute a wholly African film in America and make the festival circuits? And you must have had some joy at the end when you got the award for Best Narrative.
Oh, yeah. The joy came. It just wasn't at the Kickstarter part, The Kickstarter part was not joyful. It got joyful later. But yeah, so it was, I was having a hard time getting any acting roles. I hadn't done off-Broadway or maybe I'd done off-Broadway, but I hadn't done Broadway at that juncture. I was a completely unproven quantity as a writer, as a director, as an actor, but I wasn't even getting like the auditions. The auditions weren't even there for the roles to even potentially prove myself. Like there just wasn't anything out there. So I just started writing, and this is, heavily documented, but I wrote an original script that was very expensive and like a sprawling West African historical epic. And I went to LA and I tried to get people to invest in it, and they were like, who are you? What is this? What are you talking about? And I luckily came into contact with a mentor at the time who was like, you need to write something around things that you can get for cheap or free. And so my family owned a Christian bookstore in the Bronx.
Okay.
And
did they have a bakery too?
They did not have a bakery, no. And there was no weed in the Bible bars. But they so very graciously, it was closed on Sunday because they go to church. Mm-hmm. So I basically was like, okay, I know I can shoot there every Sunday because there are no customers and the store is closed. And so then I just kind of reverse engineered a story that centered in and around a Christian bookstore in the Bronx. And so that was kind of how, thank you. Yeah.
Well done.
Thanks.
One of the interesting things for me is that you were able to succinctly and very subtly and beautifully capture us living in the Bronx in America.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I enjoyed about this film is the duality of the current West African or Ghanaian life. You have the father who is in America who goes back to Ghana and then has to come when his wife is dead. And the dynamics of that relationship, and Auntie Gertrude. Then you have the child who is raised in America but does not want to get on the scale and still has to send things home. Right? Yeah. So yeah. I'm wondering how intentional it is in your work. You're currently now on this massive hit on Netflix called The Diplomat. And it is, yes. And I have often wondered when you were, how much of, in my head, it is you saying to them, this character has to be Ghanaian.
For The Diplomat?
Yes.
Oh.
I don't know if that's true or not, but it's nice for me. It's like, oh yeah. She walked in there and said, this Billy Appiah, White House Chief of Staff, must be a Ghanaian American.
Well, so there's a funny story about that, which is that when I auditioned for the role in The Diplomat, the character's name was Charlie Gilwhite.
Oh.
And not Ghanaian. And he was written as a 50-year-old white male, which if you look historically at the chiefs of staff to the presidents for time immemorial, they've all been 50-year-old white men. And so to be, but they had auditioned a bunch of 50-year-old white men and they weren't finding what they were looking for. And so they started to expand, get a little wider, get a little younger, get a little blacker. And so then I went in for the role and and it was like the words, like, a lot of times people ask me how do you memorize like those really like the jargon, the jingoistic, jargony kind of American political language, and I can't tell you how much easier it is to memorize that language than it is to memorize bad writing. Ooh. Like when writing doesn't feel authentic, when it doesn't feel like it doesn't, it just like kind of catches in your mouth, like you can't quite like articulate yourself, and that's a monster to memorize. But like the way that she writes, Deb Khan, our showrunner, is so effortless, and so, even though it is really technical. Anyway, back to the casting, I got the role, and then Deb called me to welcome me on board, and she was like, so, you may notice that the character's name is Charlie Gilwhite. And I was like, I did notice that. And she said, well, I would be open to renaming the character, and I would love to honor your Ghanaian heritage if that's something that you would be down for. So, but she said, you also need to pick a new first name, because I don't know if anyone here watched The West Wing, the show The West Wing, but there was a character named Charlie on that show, and he was black. And she was like, I can't have another white president yelling Charlie and having a black person enter the Oval Office. So she was like, can we pick a new name altogether? And a woman who's been very important to me in my life and youth is a Chinese-American architect named Billy Chen. And so I picked Billy instead of Charlie. And then I gave her like 4 Ghanaian last names, like Boateng and, Osetutu and, Appiah. And then she's like, oh, I love Kwame Anthony Appiah. Let's do that. Yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. So that's how we came to Billy Appiah. Yeah.
Kwame Anthony Appiah, he's at NYU.
Yes, I do.
He's one of our people. Mm-hmm. Well done. So, in thinking about the work you have done for television, mm-hmm. right? I think, The Diplomat and Billy Appiah is quite wonderful. Mm-hmm. But we started watching you when you played a Nigerian, Sade, on An African City.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, what is your life like now? From when you compare being on the set of An African City in Accra to being on the set of, say, I don't know, Presumed Innocent.
Okay. Yeah, it's different.
I mean, are you rolling in dough?
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, it's different. It's definitely different. I think, I still get recognized for An African City, I would say more so than anything else, because
interesting.
Because An African City, because it was on YouTube and because it was the first of its kind in terms of being available in that format, people really feel like a sense of ownership of having discovered it. Like they feel like they discovered it, and so when they see me, they're like, "Oh my God!" There's a connection there that feels a little bit more personal. Okay. I would say, than being on an Apple show or a Netflix show. And so those are always my favorite, recognitions, or when people recognize me from An African City. Also because it was 12 years ago. And it's like, if you can still recognize
still glowing.
Me, exactly. It's like, I feel good about that. Okay. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for, I think the different characters that you've played are also different. So you've played Nigerian, mm-hmm. and I think you've played Latina or Latinx.
Oh, right. Technically, yeah. I said she was, I figured she was Dominican or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you are, as an actress, beautiful but a bit of a chameleon. Mm. One of my colleagues, we were talking about the different films that you're in and the different TV shows that you're in. You always look different.
I think that's true. Which is why people don't really recognize me.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you are approaching a character that you have not written, mm-hmm. what's your prep like for that?
Sure. I think the first thing is locating the character's sense of humor.
Okay.
I feel like that's always really important to me. Like, what makes that person laugh is kind of like the key to being able to open the door to get into how else they live. And sometimes I'll do a playlist or something, curating the music that they like, and I'll listen to it in my trailer or something before. But also, now, for example, for The Diplomat, we're in season 4 now. It's like,
congratulations on series regular.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a big promotion.
And so, season 4 now, it's just spending time with an old friend. I don't need to do any of that. Once the wig goes on, it's I know exactly who she is. I don't need to. There's not a lot of prep involved in that anymore. Stage work, I would say, is a little different. I did a play last year, 2024, in London, in the West End, and that was a real undertaking. It was essentially a two-hander, and it was about a death row inmate who falls in love with the woman who's there to kind of help advocate for him, and I am the woman, and that was really challenging, getting in the mind, because of course, I don't think I would ever fall in love with a death row inmate, and so who knows?
There are people.
Yeah, there are people who are into
Everybody
that.
Deserves love.
That's right.
Including the incarcerated.
That's right, including the incarcerated. But that was a little bit of a harder find, because I felt like I had to keep suspending disbelief of how she, on the outside, as a black woman, as a middle-class black woman, would fall for this white he was played by Adrian Brody, the actor Adrian Brody, and so.
Yeah,
Wow,
you've had
I
some,
guess there's some.
You've had some white leading men.
There are some Adrian Brody fans in the house. And so having to kind of suspend disbelief of everything your parents have been through to get you to this point, and then you're going to go and partner with a man who's on death row, who's going to spend the rest of his life so that was like intense, and I had to really kind of like struggle and work it out and kind of like create a whole backstory that would allow her heart to be open to this man. And so it just depends. Sometimes it's a tougher, it's a bigger swing than other times, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, for characters that you have written, right? What is that like, the process for you? Because I remember years ago that you wrote some episodes of An African City.
I did, yeah.
Right. I mean, you have a motion picture, moving image writing career as well.
Yeah. So I have, there are 3 roles that I have written for myself. One was Some of Sade on season 2 of An African City. The second one was a Netflix comedy, a BDSM comedy where I played
Bonding?
Yeah, Bonding, called Bonding.
The sexy one?
I played a dominatrix, and then the
I think
third,
someone has watched it back
someone
then.
has seen Bonding.
I had a yeah.
Yes, we love Bonding in this house, and then this would be the third. But I guess actually this came first before Bonding, and the first 2 times in African City I knew I was writing for myself. But Bonding, I had not yet won the role, but in the writer's room, as we were crafting that character of Mistress Mira, I was pulling from a lot of my own experiences, and I was just a writer in the writer's room. Everyone knew I also acted, but we never talked about me playing the role, and then it just kind of started to like get more, it snowballed, and it just started to sound more and more like me. And then eventually, when the writer's room was closed and they had to start auditioning for the role, the showrunner was like, I think, we can acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is that you are Mistress Mira. And I was like, I guess so, yeah. I guess who else could it be but me, So that was how that happened. But I try to divorce myself, because I know we have some other writer-directors in the house, but in terms of writing, directing, and acting, I just have to kind of bifurcate those roles, because if I write it knowing I'm going to play it, because initially I was trying to chase Lupita to play this role.
Girl,
what
happened to her?
I know.
Her loss is our gain.
Exactly. But I had wanted her to play the role because 12 Years a Slave, like just about to, when I started envisioning the story and everything, it was 2013, 2014. And I knew, because she was, at the time, she was a friend of a friend, and then eventually we became friends, but she was a friend of a friend, and I knew that she was having a hard time finding roles, even though she just won the Academy Award. And so I was like, well, then maybe she'll do my indie. She did not want to do my indie. But if I think about myself in the role, I think it allows a bit of cowardice to enter, because I'm like, oh, I don't really want to do that. Oh, I don't want to take my clothes off, or I don't want to kiss that guy, or I don't want to, whatever. Like, I start to just like put up walls. And if I envision someone else doing it, then I actually can be true to like what I feel the story is. So it's just like and similarly, when I'm writing it, I don't think about, oh God, like I better set the scene during the daytime because a night shoot would be too expensive. Like, I can't put my producer brain or director brain in when I'm doing the writing. The writing has to just be guided by what the story wants to be. So
tell me about directing this. You had a massive cast in New York City, and it's your first directorial feature. Mm-hmm. How did it go in your mind, and are you going to do it again?
I am going to do it again.
Yay!
It's taken 4 years for me to be able to say that out loud, but I, as you know, have been a a resident at Dot Ateliers writing residency.
Shout out to Dot Ateliers.
Shout out to Dot Atelier. And I have come away from that residency with my second feature script that I want to direct. And so I'm very happy. It's an early draft, guys. It's early. But yeah,
We're very encouraging here at NYU.
Yes, we are. So
we love the effort.
So inshallah, I'll be able to direct that. And it takes place here and in Ghana. I'm sorry, here and in New York. And so, so that's the first part. What was the question?
I want to, your experience directing this.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
No,
so you wrote it, and
hard.
then you went and you begged for money.
It was too much.
You got $20 from somebody.
It was too much. I literally, I say with like absolute sincerity, I'm so glad that this film exists. I'm so happy I crossed the finish line with it. My team and I crossed the finish line with it. There should be a few other people up here tonight, but because I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. But ultimately, I feel very strongly that I will never write, direct, and act in the same project ever again.
No Tyler Perry for you?
Yeah, no. Yeah, hard no. It was not, I just think it's like, it's so hard. It's so hard to direct and then to have somebody be like, oh, but you just have a little something on your face. Hold on, let me just you're a bit shiny. Let me pout. It's like, I don't want to talk about that right now. I want to talk about the shot. I want to set it up. I want to get, I want to get going. I want to tell the story. And so it's too much. So I will write and direct. I will act. I shall not combine the three again. Okay. But directing this script that I've written, I'm hoping to write and direct, not act in. And that I think those, parallel tracks. Yeah.
Well done.
I hope.
A few more questions about this film. Mm-hmm. What was up with that professor guy? What kind of affair is that?
So basically, I cast my friends in everything. And so basically every single person that you see in this film is a friend there are very few people that I did not know going into this process. And because I didn't have any money, so I had to be down. It had to be people who were willing to show up and perform out of love and like the SAG minimum, which I think was like $100 a day or something. And so so Adam Leon is actually in his own right a tremendous director, and he directed a film called Gimme the Loot, which won at South by Southwest in I think 2012, and then he wrote and directed another film called Tramps with that British guy that everyone loves right now. But this was his friend Callum Turner. Is that his name? Callum Turner. So it was Callum Turner and oh God, I'm bad at this. Anyway, another very hot right now young actress, and so, he's like a totally successful, wonderful director. And he had been like a low-key mentor in this process leading up to it because his first film, Gimme the Loot, was made for a similar budget, tiny money. And so I used some of his producers. So I was calling him a lot. And then eventually I needed to cast this role of like, it needed to be far-fetched. It needed to be like, how are these two people like, doing this?
Yes.
So,
how are they doing
How
it?
are they doing this? Mm-hmm. And it just, I just needed it to be obviously wrong because I didn't have a lot of time because I didn't have a lot of money. So I needed to visual signals that were going to give you, okay, this is the ride that we're on. And so her being with this man, bless him, we love Adam. But, her being with this man, immediately, instinctually, the whole audience goes, girl, like, what's like, are you okay? And I needed that. I needed the brevity of that response. So, which is why I eventually was like, can you come and play this role for me? And he was totally down, even though he'd never acted before. And we had fun. Yeah.
Another shocking thing, other than the, chasing after the guy who's already married, was the violence between father and daughter. Where was that coming from? The slaps back and forth.
Yeah, it was. I have a great relationship with my father. I don't know where this came. Yeah, I have a wonderful.
I was wondering.
I have a wonderful relationship with my father, my mother, and my mother is still alive. Like, this is all totally fictional. That part, the events of the film are completely fictional, but there's an emotional truth, right? And so. But yeah, there's a big frustration between like old world, new world. I think in like the old school way that our, I'm a millennial, like our boomer parents raised us, and a lot of people were like, at the premiere, a lot of people in the audience were the first generation daughters of West African immigrants, and there was a common thread of truth in that, and maybe perhaps a bit of wish fulfillment. There was a rousing chorus during the slap scene where I was like, "Oh God, you guys all need therapy." But but yeah, it was just, I just was playing with this idea of power and who has it and when it switches. I've spoken to parents of older children, and there's always this moment where you have been in control. The dynamic has been you are the powerful one, and then there's always a moment that comes where that switches, where it turns, and it's kind of destabilizing for everyone involved. So I kind of wanted to show that.
Thank you so much. Can I ask you about the wonderful music in this film?
Yes, yes. So. We had a wonderful music supervisor who came on board. There were some artists that I knew I wanted to work with. I really wanted to work with Manifest.
Shout out.
Shout out to Manifest. I know you're here somewhere.
He is?
Don't be shy. I see you somewhere. Anyway, so I really wanted to work with Manifest. I really wanted to work with Daddy Lumba, rest in peace. And so I had given him those two directives, and then everything else he found. I had also wanted to work with Jojo Abbott, but she unfortunately wasn't able to, licensing and stuff. It was a little bit too tricky. But all these things considered, it was like a really fruitful collaboration, and I'm ever grateful that a lot of these artists gave me the rights to use the music in the film for very modest rates. Moses also, Moses Sumney is another artist that and actually, Moses, Manifest have all become friends through this process, which I think was really, we were acquaintances before, and then I did the scary thing of making that call of like, can you let me use your music for, a nominal rate? And they all, showed up for me because they believed in the film and they believed in what I was trying to do and the story I was trying to tell. And when people say that, like, I don't know, sometimes I hear a narrative that like Ghanaians are not willing to help each other, but I mean, this film is all about Ghanaians helping each other and like showing up for each other and supporting each other. So I'm very grateful for that. Yeah.
So for the young writer, actress, actor, wannabe director, person who wants to tell our stories and wants to tell them in the big wide world that there is out there, in the way that you've so masterfully done through your career, it often feels so daunting. It often feels like you're just banging this art out and maybe nobody will get it.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And I can envision seeing your film and thinking, trying to sell this, maybe nobody will get it. Mm-hmm. How do you get over that hump? What is your advice to those of us who are trying to come up?
I would say my advice is to be humble and enthusiastic. The producer of this film, who was also the producer of Gimme the Loot, one of the producers, Baf Akoto, had heard about Gimme the Loot. And so when I sent him the script for this, he was like, you know who I think would be a great low-budget indie producer for this is this guy that just won the Best Narrative Award at South by Southwest. Call him up. And I was like, call him up. Like, and so I think it was like Facebook. I think I went onto Facebook and I said, hey, I Googled him and I saw that he went to Columbia. So I put on Facebook, does anybody I know follow me who went to Columbia. I'm looking for someone. And so then I found his email address. Somebody I knew was at Columbia. They were like, yeah. I was like, what's his name? I gave him his name, Jamin Washington. Can you look him up? And they were like, yeah, here's his email address. And I cold emailed him. And I was just like, look, I heard about Give Me the Loot. It sounds like a great film. I can't wait to see it because it had not yet been released in theaters. I'm trying to make an indie of a similar budget, similar scope. Would you be down to meet with me? Because Give Me the Loot also takes place in New York. It's a lot of exterior shots. Like it's very, and I was like, would you be willing to meet with me to talk about my film? And he was like, yeah, sure. And that was our first meeting. We met for tea at the Crosby Street Hotel, which was half the budget.
Very fancy.
But yeah, it was. And so we met, and he was like, I love this story. Like, let's do it. And so that was how we ended up. That's how we ended up working together. So I had to be a little bit bold and humble to be like, hey, I need help. That's the first thing. And yeah, and just a little bit crazy to kind of like cold email this person.
Okay. So we have to be bold and fearless and a little bit crazy.
A little bit crazy.
And just keep at it.
Yeah. I think tenacity is important because if you don't hit it the first time, it doesn't mean that, this, I got really lucky because this is, a very low budget film and I had not a lot of support. I didn't know anybody in the distribution sector and anything like that. But like, it was a crazy chain of events that like we had made some of the film and then there was a film festival for half-finished films to compete and get finishing funds in France. And so then we applied to that. And then the woman that selected our film, and then France, they spend money on film like crazy. And so they flew us all to France to, it was called the Champs-Élysées Film Festival. And we went to France and it was so cool and whatever. The woman that had programmed our film then, when it was half finished, left that festival and then went to go work at Magnolia. And so then when we finally finished the film, which by the way, it stalled. We didn't win the prize. And then it stalled because we had no more money. And I was still trying to work out like some kinks, some narrative kinks in the story. And so eventually we put it away for a couple of years. And then me, Jamin, and Kelly Robbins Hicks went on to do other stuff. Kelly went on to produce Space Jam 2. They produced Random Acts of Flyness for HBO. So I started working as an actor more. So we all started making a little bit more money. And what ended up happening was Kelly called both of us and was like, guys, we got to finish this film. And now we all have a little bit of money. So why don't we come in as our end stage financiers, and that's what we did. And so we actually put our own money into the film to get it over the line. And so then when it was finally finished, she was at her name is Marie Zenité. She was at Magnolia, and so we were like, hey, can you take a look at this for us? And she was like, yeah. She was like, I want to be your sales agent, like, let's do this. And so then she helped us with the applications for film festivals, and of course it had been COVID. We finished editing the film we finished shooting we shot the film in 3 big chunks, and the final chunk of the film, we wrapped shooting in November of 2019. And so which I just
what a godsend.
I get chills just thinking about it, because if we had pushed a little more, delayed a little more, COVID would have happened. It never would have finished. We never would have finished the film. So we finished shooting the film in November of 2019. COVID happens when it happens, and so we have to move editing online. So we're doing it over Zoom. It was laborious and amazing at the same time. And so when we finally had a cut to show, we showed it to Marie, and she was like, let's do it. And then all the film festivals had shut down because of COVID. And then we heard through her that Tribeca was going to be the first in-person film festival, because we didn't want to premiere the film on Zoom. We didn't, right. It's not a film for Zoom. It's a film to be watched in a cinema with people. And so,
in a garden.
And so, we heard that Tribeca was going to be the first film festival back in person after the pandemic, and so during the pandemic, and so we applied there, and then we got in, and so that was the beginning of the joyful part.
Yeah. Well done. My time is almost up, but Alpha is not going to forgive me if we don't get a few questions in from the audience.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but
Hello? Yes.
Hello.
You know, I never knew that you could actually create a scene, an action scene, without fight, without guns, without motorbikes, without cars, without explosives. I mean, the moment where the woman's water broke, that's a beautiful action scene.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Thank you. That is, I have to give props to my theater background for that one, because the whole thing is like highly choreographed, because the camera doesn't move. So it was about timing. So I'm just off, out of sight behind the, like, you know, there's the stairs and I'm like, okay, go now. Like, okay, now you go. No, you go. Like, you know, and just like coordinating the chaos of like, give me the keys, like, you know, like whatever. And so then they're like, where are the keys? So like that was a whole, like, it was a play. It was basically like a very short play. And that's one of my favorite scenes in the film. So thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thanks.
You know, I keep coins, and when times are hard, that's when I use them. So it's always like what's that expression? The stone that the builders rejected, right? And then I saw when you had to buy pizza, you were scrambling for your coins. But the point where I was just so fascinated was keeping coins in the drawer with utensils. I mean, I thought that was crazy. Thank you.
Okay. She's chaotic. What can I say?
So, Nana Mensah, thank you so much. I think we have time for one or two questions, but we do have, please come up to the mic, my sister. Mm-hmm. Come on up, because we do have some refreshments, some mingling. So we don't want to keep you all from the food, but we've got one or two more questions to go.
Hi, I'm Jessica Hagen. It was an
Jessica.
incredible film. Nice to meet you. So I get a really great understanding of what Ghana means to you culturally and what Ghana is to you culturally. I'm really interested in what Ghana means to you commercially, specifically for the TV and film industry.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think commercially, I feel as though there's a lot of potential. I think it's also really hard to do financing here. So no matter what, like there are concessions that I made making this film in New York, right? Like in terms of the availability of actors, in terms of what, like I would have loved to have like, you know, brought certain actors like over to, from here to there to, you know, play some of those parts, but I had to do what I had to work with what I had available, ultimately, because I think, but also Ghana's had a big glow up since this film has come out, you know, like, so, I mean, just ever more, you just keep hearing about Ghana in the news for various reasons. Obviously, Michaela Cole is here making her show now, like, there's just, which is like BBC and A24 and HBO, and like, you know, so those are major players in the game that are like, here in Ghana making art. So I feel like that can only help us in terms of getting our stories out. And so I feel optimistic. I also think that like there is an immense amount of talent here in Ghana that should be exported, you know? And so I'm just hopeful that like, you know, the great white world looking at Ghana is going to inspire more commercial, you know, whatever, because there's just there's so much potential, there's so much talent, there's so much, you know, I'm excited and hopeful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, great film, by the way.
Thanks.
The stuff you were saying about the blocking that you were doing, I was going to ask the question earlier, because I was curious, well, this part's just a thought. I was curious as to whether it was budget limitations that made you lean into that, or if it was, you know, the theater background mainly, that you knew you're going to place the camera in certain places and the people will come in, out, so the blocking was interesting. But the real question I wanted to ask is, so obviously you wrote it, you directed it, you acted in it. Mm-hmm. But then there's a balancing act you have to do where you're writing a character who's doing some ostensibly shaky things.
It's a very diplomatic way to put it, yeah.
But you still want the audience to root for the character.
Right.
So how do you balance that? And were you done at the point when you started actually acting in it? Were you still tweaking things based on kind of tactile feedback as you were doing it? Because if we don't root for this character, the story doesn't work. So I'm curious as to how that balancing act happened.
When I said I shot the film in 3 parts, part of it was that we had a different beginning. The beginning that you saw was actually the very last thing that we shot years later, like after we came in as financiers and self-finance the rest of the movie. Because what happened was at the original beginning, you lost, I guess, sympathy for her. You were not ready to go on this ride with her. She was too divorced from what was happening. It was too removed. And so, and usually in a lot of films start off great and you're in and you're leaning in. Those first 10 minutes, 20 minutes, you're like leaning in, and then things kind of fall apart. And we were in a really unique position where our first 10, 20 minutes were not gelling. They were not cohesive. But then, like 30 minutes, it like basically once Pitt comes in and then to the rest of the film, it was like that's what we shot initially, like in 2015 or whatever that was. Like those are the original, that we didn't change much from that part on, but we couldn't figure out the beginning. And so, for the very reasons that you stated. And so it took a lot of time and kind of percolating and growing as a writer, writing on other people's stuff, growing as an actor, growing as a storyteller, as a person, exactly, that helped me lock into what those first 20 minutes of the film needed to be. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have time for just 1.5 more. So
Okay.
these two wonderful ladies will be the
Okay.
last question because
Okay.
Alpha's
he
already
said
looking at
one-
me.
1.5 more. Okay.
Yes.
I have a comment and then the question regarding the character.
Sure.
One, Ohio. I'm from Ohio.
Sorry.
Like,
Things
I
are
just
cheaper
wanna
in
make-
Ohio.
I just want to make it clear, Ohio is not that bad. We have Ohio State, one of the largest university in the country.
Sorry.
And our economy is great. It is true that we have corn and nothing but corn. And I feel as Ghanaian, you should love that. Banku.
Ghanaians love corn. It's true. We love corn.
Banku.
Yeah.
But thank you, because for a person like myself from the diaspora that was born on the continent, I'm Congolese, but I grew up in the state in Ohio. And to really see someone write something that kind of we tend to be in the fence, having to manage growing up in the US at the same time also respecting and honoring our African upbringing. And I love the way you did it. I love the way you portrayed it. And I was like, I get it. I'm not Ghanaian, but as an African child growing up in the US, I appreciate you. But
Thank you.
the question that I have is, at the beginning, after the death of her mother, she was unable to express any kind of emotion. She felt nothing. And she seemed more keen and more excited about this move to Ohio with this man. And I found it quite interesting that the moment that she actually cried was when it was evident that this is not going to happen. And then we cut to the end with the funeral when she did finally cry. And I was wondering, I don't know if what were you thinking, like your thoughts behind this?
Yeah.
Was she crying for the death of her mother? Was it really more so for accepting the fact that you're not moving out of this area? You kind of stuck, baby, and your dream to go to Ohio State with this man is gone. So who was she crying? Who was she crying for?
I think,
One second. Maybe
Her
we'll,
mama or man?
we'll also take the second question.
Okay.
because we're running out of
both
time,
questions.
And then you
Okay.
can answer both at the
Okay,
same
okay,
time.
great.
Thank you.
I'll be
Great.
so fast. I'll be
Okay,
so fast.
Great.
I'm really curious about the archival footage and like what made you decide to choose some of those, because I thought that it was so beautiful and showing the old and the new and how it never leaves. So I'm just curious about like what your inspiration was and how you chose specific clips.
Okay, do you remember the first question?
The first question.
You do. You remember. Okay, so then let me answer the second question first because it's a quick answer.
Okay.
So I need to give props to Rita Moena Benisan. She is
Yay,
a
Rita.
tremendous,
Good friend of us.
tremendous artist and friend, and was a grad student in Wisconsin, another state that I like to malign. She was a grad student in Wisconsin and running Sihene online, and I found her through Instagram, and I said, hey, we don't know each other, but I'm making a film, and I think it needs archival footage from Ghana. Would you help me source it? And so she came on as the film's archivist and sourced the footage for us and helped us clear the releases to be able to use. And so that was just a collaboration, and we became friends, through that process. Again, she did it for no money. Ghanaians helping Ghanaians, and she loves to brag that I'm her first IMDb credit. And so that was how that happened. But the film was basically set without the archival footage, and then I just kind of had a weird 2 a.m. epiphany, and I was like, I know what it needs, and so then that was how I found Rita. The first question was,
The first question was she crying at the end?
What was she crying for?
Because she had
Yeah.
lost this white man in Ohio who was married, or because she had lost her mother, or because she was now stuck in the Bronx selling weed and Bibles?
so
What was the reason for her tears?
Okay. So what I think was happening there is like a cracking open, right? Like, I don't know, like Chekhov, for example, like, you know, I gotta get to Moscow. Like, it's like you have all these people who are like enduring with this like long-term, just out of reach goal. Like, it's like, I just gotta get to Moscow. And so Ohio is her Moscow, right? And so she's so like maniacally, uniformly trained on that goal that even the death of her mother actually forces her deeper into that goal because she doesn't want to deal with it. So it's like it makes her beam into it even harder. So when that starts to crack, everything starts to crack, right? Like it all starts to kind of, it's just a house of cards. And so she, so I think that's ultimately what that served. It was like inspired by Chekhov, but you know, its own Ghana style.
Nana Mensah, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Remember that you are
Thank you.
always welcome here at NYU Accra.
Thank you.
Alpha is going to do some housekeeping for us with the team, and then we can mingle and have some refreshments. So thank you again.
Yeah. We have just 2 more items on the schedule, the program for this evening. A vote of thanks, and then refreshment and networking. So those of you who eye the guys and girls that you didn't pass the popcorn on to, you have a second opportunity to do that. Shall we call to the stage Dr. Ni Okai from NYU Accra for the vote of thanks. Thank you.
This is not new kind of musician. Yeah, great. Queen of Glory, it has been a wonderful evening on behalf. And on behalf of the site director, Prof. Frankie, and the entire NYU Accra team, we thank you all very much for taking time off your busy schedules to join us for this screening. We're so grateful. On our collective behalf, including everyone here, I would like to extend our deep appreciation to Nana Mensah and her team for sharing such an amazing film with us. I think we can give it wonderful. We also say a big thank you to all those who supported in various ways to make this screening possible. I wish you all a happy Farmers' Day in advance. Have a lovely evening. Thank you. I had 3 pages, so I think I've summarized very well.
This is one of the few events where you get a ticket to come in, and then you also get a ticket to go out. We have bags packed with refreshments. Everyone should grab a bag before you leave. And please, network, and let's continue the conversations. Thank you so much for coming. Have a good evening.